Hello to this month's installation of Hector's Highlights. My name is Hector and I talk about the things that I liked and disliked this past month. Let's get right into it with everything regarding literature. First of all, I finally finished a book that I have been reading for 2 to 3 months now. The Fourth Turning is Here by Howe, which is a book that was published in 2023 and is about generational cycles and the pattern and seasons of history. How people and different generations fulfill different archetypes in every sense of society and in every aspect of society. Even though this book took me some time, I really liked it and I had a lot of learning and accepting my role in society or what the role of my generation might be in society, and I would really recommend anybody reading this book or any other book about how society reacted to certain shifts and how they kind of were the reason for these changes. After reading this more academic leaning book, I decided to read something for entertainment, and I landed at Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which is a classic and I imagine some people had to read in literature class or English class, for example. This book was published in 1813 and is about a woman that tries to marry off her daughters into prestigious and rich families, because we had times where that was kind of the case. And that was kind of how you made your money and how you climbed the social ladder. This is very outdated to me and the contents to me were pretty boring. We see the whole story through the eyes of one of the daughters, Elizabeth, also called Lizzie, which is very witty and sees the world in a very smirky kind of way, smart-ass kind of way. The language is like this complicated British English that you might know. To me, it doesn't have as much appeal because I'm a kind of pragmatic guy. So I wouldn't recommend, but if you're into that kind of stuff, go ahead. Because that book was kind of thin, I got into another book that you might know from English class called Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Lord of the Flies was published in 1954 and is about a couple of boys that get stranded on a deserted island and how they lose their sense of civilization and they lose their innocence but keep it in some way, and how humans change and the kind of archaic side that we have inside of as animals and as maybe aggressive animals that have a tendency to lean towards brutality. This book is a classic and I would recommend it. How he depicts the boys, at least in their everyday interaction, was very accurate to me. Because I read 2 books where I felt like that I had to read them to kind of grow my knowledge when it comes to literature, I wanted to go back to the basics and go to back what I like, back to my feelings, and decided to buy a book that encapsulates a lot of stories by Franz Kafka, who is a very classic and very mysterious kind of author. There's even an adjective coined after him, Kafkaesque, because of his bizarre, kind of anti-social, easily misunderstandable and not understandable at all language. I'm just a Kafka fanboy. I encountered him at first in school and was immediately grasped by his way of storytelling and his stories that had like no drama and kind of defied traditional senses of stories. And to me, Kafka encapsulates paving your own lane, doing things that may not be mainstream, but being successful. Special thing about him, he only published a couple of stories on his own and told his friend Max Brod, please don't release anything. Max Brod did it anyway because he thought his friend or colleague was genius. Thanks to Max, our homie Max, we got Kafka's story now, which are largely unfinished or very short. But I've been vibing with this for the last week and I'm very happy that I get to experience more of Kafka's work. That's it for literature, so let's continue on with movies and series I watched this month and that I would recommend or would not recommend. First of all, I finished season 4 of the Amazon Prime series The Boys, which is about superheroes, anti-heroes, what happens if if some individuals get power in a realistic sense, and what it means to have power, physical power, superpowers, emotional power, political power. It can be on the nose sometimes and is a little bit childish and very gory, but I enjoyed how kind of this season wrapped up, and the last 3 episodes really give it some meaning for the next season and really makes you want to watch the next season. Again, this is very gory, can be a little bit on the nose sometimes, but overall it's a good series. Quick side note, I also watched a YouTube video about someone dissecting why the series is better than the comic, and I'm very glad that the series expanded a lot upon the very basic concepts that were depicted in the original The Boys comic. This month I also got into my seasonal obsession with the art world, and I got into Basquiat. Again, Jean-Michel Basquiat was a young artist hailing from New York City around the same time that we had Andy Warhol becoming famous and mainstream. They also knew each other and had some collaborative work. This movie called Basquiat and published in 1996 was more for entertainment than like learning. I mean, I knew some stuff about Basquiat. The thing that stood out to me was the actor that personified Basquiat in this movie. He really got his mannerisms down. If you watch the movie and then you watch the interviews or like some clips that are around of Basquiat, then you see that he really took his role serious, and that was kind of heartwarming for me watching this movie. That's it for movies and series, so let's get right into the last and my favorite segment, music. Again, I have 3 songs and 1 album that I'd like to recommend this month. Maybe you can see a theme between the 3 songs that I'm gonna recommend. Let me know down below in the comments if you see the similarities between the songs. The first song is Didn't You Know by Erykah Badu, which I came to listen to again because, of course, Erykah Badu is a legend and an icon when it comes to modern music and to soul and to hip-hop. But this song kind of surfaced again because of edits, basketball edits. Paul George is an NBA player who is very smooth, or who is said to be very smooth in his dribblings and the way he moves with the ball. So there have been a lot of edits with Paul George doing spin moves in slow motion and Didn't You Know playing in the background. The next song is ryoach Freestyle Killa by Overpade and Marika Sage. Is a comfort song of mine. It's very simplistic. You got the road keys, you got the drum break loops, and you got the smooth bars. It's not overly produced, it's to the point, and to me it encapsulates what makes rap fun. And also, I'm a sucker for crispy drums. The next song is very similar in that way that it has a special place in my heart, and it's a comfort song to me. Bounce by Foxell, Lord Apex and Flowzart. This is just straight up British shit talking, rhyming, hanging in the studio, kind of faded, shit talking to someone that is not really named. The only gripe I have with this song is kind of that it ends and then there's like 15, 20, 30 seconds of silence. I guess it was an export mistake or they just wanted to troll, but I guess it's also good to have some seconds to reflect what kind of shit talking you were just witnessing. My recommended album this month is a pretty recent one. I Lay Down My Life For You by JPEGMAFIA, released this year. With 14 songs and a runtime of 41 minutes and 24 seconds, is just under an hour long. This sounds, to me at least, like the most mainstream JPEGMAFIA album we have. More traditional song structure, more understandable or relatable lyrics for some people, commenting on the music world and mainstream and how opinions are made. My favorite track is Ex-Military because it just has drums that kick ass, but you have to wait for the drums like 1 minute and 30 seconds, 2 minutes, and then they hit, but just waiting for the first drop really gives me this anticipatory feeling, which I very like. Peggy is very consistent when it comes to his albums. I like that this album is more accessible because I feel like he doesn't get enough praise by the mainstream. And with this album being more accessible, I feel like more people will go back to his older stuff, like Veteran, LP, EP, all that stuff, maybe even the Devin Hendrix stuff, although that stuff is kind of very experimental and not as accessible. But I'm just happy that an artist that I like and that I feel is very unique and kind of breaks the mold gets more accessible and gets the praise he deserves. And another side note, this album sounds like another album that we kind of expected, but that just turned out to be a dumpster fire. But I like that we have a generational change and that some people just have expectations on them and that some people have no expectations by the mainstream, but then deliver anyways. These are my recommendations for this month. I hope you got something out of it. Like, comment what you liked, and subscribe for next month's recommendations. See you in the next one.